Good morning, everybody, to this Tuesday. I have to think about that. Where we are wrapping up our discussion on Roman numbers. So let's see where we are. If you remember, we're going to do addition, subtraction, and multiplication eventually in Roman numbers. We're not going to do division because division is special. We've done some examples with addition and and subtraction. So let's just do one example for each since we are going to have the time. So let's see here. We're staying in the Roman number system, and that forces me to really look at the method that I know and love. So let's take maybe 1,000. Let's take maybe a 600. Let's take nothing and a 9. Maybe something like that. Plus, of course, when I write these numbers, I do say the names in English. How can I not? Let's take maybe, let's go with a 9,000. Whoopsie. I'm just making this up as I go. 9,000. Let's go 300 here. Let's go 50. And let's go 5. Sure. Just to remember, how did the Roman numbers work again? It was a whole weekend and a test in between, so I might not remember because I was preoccupied. Okay. Now, we go right to left. We start with the ones column. And we say 9 plus 5. 9 plus 5 is 14. That means a 10 is carried over and a 4 is left. And I write the corresponding value for 4. Not the value, the corresponding representation in the Roman numbers. Then I move on to my tens column. 10 plus 50 is 60, and I represent 60. Then I move on to my hundreds column, where I have 600 and another 300 make 900. What is the representation for 900? It's a subtractive pair, 100 less than 1,000. Then I move on to my thousands column. I have 1,000 plus 9,000. That's a full 10,000. That moves on to the 10,000s column, which doesn't have anything in it. Maybe I should move this plus to not make it look weird. And what do I have left? I have nothing left. So I write nothing. There's no 0. There's nothing like that in the Roman numbers. And then I move on to my 10,000s column. And that's the only thing there is. Now it might look weird in the spaces. I could write everything squished together. And the question is certainly going to give it to me like that. And some people like to then write it in that same way again. The spaces make them nervous. So they like to write it in one line, but that's totally up to you. Totally up to you. All right. So hopefully we remember addition. And of course, like I said, in the test, yeah, now I have to think about the next test already. Oh, it sucks. In a test, the goal is to see if you understand the method behind this. And you have to stay in the Roman number system. If I see any decimal numbers anywhere, I subtract marks. And there aren't that many marks to subtract. So that's for the test. If you feel like I need more practice, I need to make my own questions, of course, in that situation, you want to check your answer. Is my answer correct? Did I do this right? Okay, then for practice and confirmation's sake, I have to convert and double check if my answer is correct, because there's no Roman number calculator that I can use. So for that reason, yes, I'm going to have to convert to verify my made-up question. But in a test, you have to only show Roman numbers when you're doing this question. That's the arithmetic question, not the conversion question. Of course, then it's both number systems. All right, that's addition. And then we have subtraction. That I'm just going to make one up. Let's see here. What is the worst one we can make? Let's think. The addition one, we didn't carry over that much. Let's make the subtraction as bad as it can be, complicated. And then any other subtraction you're ever going to see is not going to be that bad. Let's go with that. So let's say here, a 5,000. I'm going to write it in a line. Minus, and then we'll set it up. Let's say 5,000 minus, let's go 555. Yeah, I like that one. That's a good one. Okay. So now, of course, my method requires I need to line this up. And the lack of zeros is what makes the Roman number system look a little confusing. I have my thousands column. Actually, I'm going to leave a nice space between the lines here. Let me move this down a little bit. I have my thousands column. Then I have nothing for the hundreds column, nothing for the tens column, nothing for the ones column. But I do need to allocate space for them, because the second number does have some symbols in those columns. So my dots aren't actually symbols. They shouldn't be there. Okay. So now I'm setting it up. Like so. It's very quiet. Hopefully that's a good thing. Maybe it's that easy. I hope so. Now, my method doesn't change. I am in the ones column. So there's nothing. Take away 5. I can't do it. So now this might look a little confusing to people. Let me actually let me do it on a new page here. But let's just remember how we would do a similar situation in the decimal system. Let's suppose we have, let's compare that with, let's say 2,000. Let me write this bigger. Why am I writing so small? 2,000 minus 734 randomly. What do I do here? I still go and look at the ones column and say 0 minus 4 can't be done. So I need to borrow from the tens. There's nothing to borrow. So I need to borrow from the hundreds. There's nothing to borrow. So I need to borrow from the thousands. I borrow 1. That becomes 10. Then I need to borrow one of those to the tens column. So I update that to a 9 and that becomes a 10. Then I update that, then I borrow from the tens column for the ones column. I always borrow 1. Then that updates to a 9 that's left. And now I'm ready to do my subtraction. Nothing's going to change. The method is the same. I just don't see zeros. This is empty space. So I need to borrow from the tens column. There's nothing there. So in order for me to borrow from the tens column, I have to first borrow from the hundreds column. There's nothing there. So in order for me to borrow from the tens column, I need to borrow from the hundreds column. And to do that, I need to borrow from the thousands column. Isn't this fun? See, no one objects. That means it's fun. So now I need to borrow from the thousands column. I borrow 1,000. Now this symbol needs to update to represent 4,000 that's left. That's the subtractive pair. Let's keep that in pink. Let's go blue. For the tens column, I need to borrow 100. Now the 1,000 that was there updates to 900, which is subtractive pair. Let's go green. Let's go a nice darker green, like that. Now I need to borrow from the tens column, and I borrow 10. I need to update the 100 that was there is now 90. And now I'm ready. All right. Stunned silence. I know. Is it because you can't hear me or you are just that comfortable with what's happening? I'm going to go for the latter. Then I'm going to go 10 minus 5. Finally, I'm ready. 5. Then I move on. Now I'm ready to go to the tens column. And it is 90 minus 50 is 40. Then I move on to the hundreds column. 900 minus 500 is 400. See how I know my symbols and my subtractive pairs. So when I say 400, I write 400. I just do it in another language. And then my thousands column has nothing to it. And I'm done. So I can then go up here. If I want to, you really don't have to. And get rid of all the spaces and make it look even worse. And there we go, subtraction. Good times. Not good times? I hope it's good times. Why not? We've seen the worst case. Now nothing can be worse than this. Nothing. All right. Now, actually, let me go to this page. This page is fine. Next up is multiplication. Multiplication. The only one that's left for us right now. Now, when we do multiplication in the decimal system, our numbers that we're used to, that we've learned, that we've done it so many times, we don't even think about it anymore. For example, let's take nothing too big. I want that second number to be manageable, right? We're not trying to make this bad. The method doesn't change. Let's take 763 times, let's take 3. Make it easy. Okay. Actually, I'm going to write it like this. Write it like this. How would you perhaps do it? You just have to do the written version. You just scribble something down. You're good to go. So you might say, okay, well, I'm lining this up times 3 Just make sure that your microphone is muted if you're not planning to speak, or you can use push to talk. Of course, that's always an option, so that we avoid background noise. If I have to mute you on this side, I might forget, and then you can never speak again. And everyone's so chatty. I don't want that to happen. I like the chatty. So now I say 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 6 is 18. 3 times 7 is 21, plus the 1 is 22, and I'm done. Nothing wrong with that. If your goal is to just get it done, there's nothing wrong with that. But that's only part of my goal. My goal is also to write it in a way that I can keep track of what I'm doing and understand what I'm doing so that it transfers to potentially teaching it more effectively. And the downside to this short version of presenting multiplication is that it doesn't really show what I did. Someone else can't come and look at this and have a very clear idea of how I got that answer. I've hidden a lot of information. This is as efficient as I could have been. There's the longer version. It's not really longer. I'm doing the same thing, longer in appearance, where I show more and it's easier to read, easier to follow from an explanation teaching point of view. So I say 3 times 3 is 9. Good. I multiplied my bottom number with the digit in the ones position, so my answer is in the ones position. Next I did the ones, essentially. Next I'm going to look at the tens place in isolation and say 3 times 6. It's not really 3 times 6, is it? It's 3 times 60, which is 180. So we relax that a little bit after a while and just look at this window relative to the tens column I'm in and say 3 times 6 is 18. It's really 3 times 6 groups of 10 is 18 groups of 10. And that's why that 18 starts in the tens column. Oopsie. Regardless of how you say it, it just needs to be lined up correctly. Then I'm going to go 3 times 700. So I know I'm going to start in the hundreds position. 3 times 7 is 21. It's really 3 times 700 is 2100. Then I'm adding these up. 9, 8, 2, and 2. And I'm done. But I prefer this longer. I don't want to say longer. Longer sounds as if I've done more. I've done the exact same thing. I've just written more. I prefer this more detailed version of multiplication so that I can help someone else follow what I did. I can see better what I did. Everything is just better. And it doesn't really take longer at all. So that is the version I'm going to do now as well, because now the goal is to see what is done every step of the way. Let's see if I have space here. I have some space, yeah. So we have a problem. I'm not showing it because I will just forget how to copy it. We have problem 5.8. Not problem, sorry. Exercise 5.8. The first one is A. So I have x, x, I times v. Now here's my problem. In the book, the times symbol looks obviously different than the x, the symbol for 10. When I write it, however, the x's and the time symbol, they look very, very similar. And I am worried that I'm going to get confused. So I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to write times. so that I don't read a time symbol accidentally as an X. You know it's going to happen at the worst case, the worst time, and I don't want that to happen. Previously, my plus and my minus symbol didn't look like anything there, so I was safe. This time, I don't feel that safe. Okay, so my lining up of everything is still the same. Tens, ones, times. I'm just going to have a nice, fairly simple second number. Now I'm going to do it. Let's do it. Okay, so I say 5 times 3 is 15. That's a 10 and a 5, and I line them up in their corresponding columns. Next, I'm going to say, so that was with the ones column only. Next, I'm going to look at the tens column and say 5 times 20. And here I can't really say 5 times 2 tens. I guess I could, but in general, I see a 20 here. It's not like the decimal system exactly where I can call that a 6. It doesn't quite work the same. I lose that efficiency, but that's okay. 5 times 20 is 100, and that goes in the hundreds column, and nothing else. I then add these up, 5, 10, 100, and I'm done. So I can put them in a line if I want it to look nice, and that's it. It is not a new method for multiplication, though it might seem like that immediately to you. If you were used to doing the left version, this might seem different, but it's not different. It's the exact same thing. The left version is just a condensed form of what you did on the right. The fundamental method is not different in any way. Okay, so don't think it's a new method. It is not. It's the same thing. We are working in a different number system to really become aware of what we're doing, when and why, and when what order, and so on. There is another exercise. It's extremely chatty today. I just cannot get a word in. It's very confusing. Exercise 5.8, the second one. Ooh, that's a longer one, so let me write that down. D, C, C, L, X, X, I, X times, so I don't confuse my times symbol, with a 5. Didn't we just do a 5? That's not very original. But of course, you can make up a ton of these, right? Make your own. There is no limit to how many examples you can make. Make your own. When we are given a question, then we want to stay within that number system. But if you make your own, I totally understand. You kind of have to convert in order to check your answer. But that's a different situation. So now let's line this up. I have some hundreds letters, then I have some tens, and then I have a ones representation. I'm going to multiply that by 5. We're not going to make that second one unnecessarily big. It's just going to slow me down and not gain any insight into the method. All right, so we go ones column. 5 times 9. 5 times 9 is nothing, apparently. Okay. I'm going to go with 45. So then I have a 40 and a 5 lined up appropriately. Then I move on to the tens column. where I then say 5 times, what do I have here? 70. 5 times 70. So since no one is actually saying, maybe MathBot wants to say something, so that someone at least has something visible in the chat.
It's 350.
Don't take MathBot's moment in the sun. Let's do it anyway. What did I say here? 70? 70 times 5. I didn't know what the answer is. I just want something to show in the chat. So then we see it's 350. Now I just have to represent 350. So 300s would line up in the hundreds and 50. And I'll merge these later. I don't worry about that now. Then I move on to the hundreds column, where I say 5 times, 700. 5 times 700. Let's show something in the chat. 5 times 700. And of course, it's going to be 3,500. Now I just have to line that up. So I'm a little over. I need another column for my thousands, and it's going to be 3,500. That's okay. Let's make a line here. It's not very straight. That's okay. Now I'm going to add these up. And very rarely would you have a lot of carryover in this because the numbers aren't super big, usually. I have in my tens column for the addition, I have 40 plus 50, which is 90. Represent 90. Then here I have 300 plus 500 is 800. And I have 3,000. That doesn't change. And I am done. I can then move it up. If you wanted to, you really don't have to, and make it look nice and squishy like so. And there we go, multiplication. Easy peasy, with some practice, of course. So it's not really a situation where we could make this look as difficult as possible. You can definitely use your calculator for the multiplications that you have to do on the way. That's totally fine. If I have a large hundreds amount and I have to multiply it by something I'm not super comfortable with, like a 5 is fairly easy. Use your calculator, that's totally fine. We just can't write anything other than Roman numbers in the layout and presentation of our multiplication answer. But when we say numbers in English, we do the arithmetic however you want in your head. On a calculator, it's all good. It's the presentation that the method is, that's showing the method more clearly. All right. Let's see if we can come up with one more. We've done 3 or so of the others. Only 2 multiplications so far. The book got a little lazy. It wasn't me, it's the book. I only had 2 examples there, so let's do another one. I'm trying to see. Let's add a C, making it up. See how bad can we make this? Really, the multiplication, the worst case is when the numbers are bigger. So let's just say sure, let's make it as big as possible here. Let's say 9,000. Let's maybe say 800. Let's maybe say 90. And let's just go 4 times. Now I don't want to make it unnecessarily big. I'm not going to go over 10. There's no benefit in that. So let's make it Let's make it a 9. I'm definitely less comfortable with 9 versus 5. All right. So now let's set it up. And maybe I'll write a little bigger. My thousands. Apparently, I'm not going to write bigger. My hundreds. My tens. My ones. Times my second number, which isn't too big. All right. Again, don't feel that you have to do all the little pieces of the arithmetic in your head. That's totally fine. You can use your calculator. We will use MathBots. The second number is definitely 9. I'm not sure what you're talking about because that is what I'm seeing. So, yeah. All right. So now I have to look at the ones column. 9 times 4. Okay, that's still manageable. I can still do 9 times 4. I just have to represent the 36. Oops, not there. There, well, there, yes, but not with a C. 36. Moving on to the tens column. Then the nice thing about the Roman system here is that I don't have to pad it with a 0. First of all, I don't have a 0. I don't have to pad it with space because the symbols are sort of new for those higher places. It's going to be lined up correctly anyway. I don't have to really worry about that like I would in the decimal system. But regardless, I have 9 times, what is this, 90. Let's give MathBot something to do. Right? I want to show something in the chat. 9 times 90. Oops, what's that line? Okay, 9 times 90, 810, which of course you knew. I'm just showing something in the chat, make it a little bit more interesting on the screen. I then represent 810. Then I move on. So it's not really anything new or looking different or anything. Maybe just with the numbers that are bigger, I just have to be sure. Then I go 9 times 800, which of course I know you could do. Just want to show it in the chat. 9 times 800. Don't know what that line is doing there. Of course, 7,200. That means I have 7,000. And I write the representation for 7,000 and a couple of hundreds. I keep going because there is a thousands place as well. And I have 9 times 9,000. 9 times 9,000. I know that's not the hardest one. $81,000, and I write 80,000, which will be 80,000. And then I write 1,000 in its column. And now I'm ready to add. So now I'm still adding the same way as I did the addition. I'm adding right to left. I have just the 6. Then I have 40 for the tens. Write the symbol, the representation for 40. Then in the hundreds, I have 800 plus another 200. That is 1,000. So let me make it pink maybe. Since I don't know where to put it. I'll put it over there. 1,000. And no hundreds are left for this one. So there's a little bit of carryover. It doesn't happen often. Then I go to my thousands column. I now have 1,000 from the previous column, plus another 7, that's 8, plus another one is 9,000. And I write my representation for 9,000. Then I go to the 10,000s column. There is not much to do there, so that just comes down. And we are done. You can go up and merge these and make them look a little nicer by squishing them closer together, but it doesn't change my answer. Maybe you'd like to do that. L, X, 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 line over it. Then an M, and then an X with a line over it. Then an XL. Oh, wow, that looks weird. I don't see that often. X with a line over it next to an X. That's interesting. I like that. And there we go. Nothing different at all. Well, it shouldn't be different anyway. Just if the numbers are bigger or in places it's bigger, then of course I have to slow down perhaps a little bit, just make sure of each little multiplication. But the method is still, it's trying to break the big multiplication up into small pieces that are easier to manage and usually ones I can do in my head. But it's good to try it in my head and then maybe confirm it on a calculator, and that way I can practice that aspect as well of mental arithmetic. That's good. Keep myself sharp, but definitely make sure in whatever way that you get the right answer at each of the little calculations. That is the end of Roman numbers for us. So questions that we have to be able to do. Luckily, what makes the second part easier is that the kind of questions that we're going to get, it's very predictable. You can list them and count them on one hand. You have to be able to convert to and from Roman numbers to decimal, of course. And that's two kind of questions. And you have to be able to do and present Roman addition, subtraction, and multiplication. Those are 5 things. There will not be any question outside of those 5 things, making it easier to study for, easier to prepare for, less stressful in terms of variety, and you don't know what you're going to get. You know what you're going to get. It's just what is the specific number going to be. So you can practice those until you are sick of them and completely master each of those kinds of questions. And then tomorrow, I'll double check the schedule, I'm pretty sure. Tomorrow we're moving on to our next chapter.
Please remember to click the like button if you enjoyed the video, and to subscribe if you want to be notified of more videos. Thank you.